Welcome to Conversations with Ann Elizabeth, the podcast inspired by my book, I'm a Registered Dietitian, Now What?, where I have the absolute joy to sit back, relax, and have a conversation about nutrition with a variety of people who share their personal story of passion and purpose, especially registered dietitians. Today's conversation is with Stephanie Miezen, a registered dietitian who has found joy in combining culinary and sports nutrition into working for Team USA. I found Stephanie on Instagram with a photo that really caught my eye in one of her favorite cities, which is Colorado Springs, which is also my favorite city. Then I started to look more at her feed, and it is filled with amazing food photos, easy nutrition information for fueling your body, and videos with culinary tips from her kitchen. After making one of her recipes that was dates and almond butter that she had posted, I noticed she was in Korea for the Olympics with Team USA. Stephanie has had some amazing experiences so far in culinary and sports nutrition, including traveling abroad a few times to share her expertise. I know you will enjoy learning about her journey so far, so please enjoy my conversation with Stephanie. I really do appreciate you taking time out of an evening. I know Mondays can be a little crazy. I know today mine was, but I'm glad that we could connect because I'm so excited to talk to you about, obviously I girl crush on you on Instagram, but I kind of want to get to know you a little bit more, your background, kind of where you got started as where you got interested in being a dietitian.
For sure.
Take me back to, did you have like a moment in school or was it at home? What kind of got you interested in the field?
Well, I grew up playing sports, mainly soccer. So I kind of came from that sports background and understanding how food is fuel. And then sounds like so ridiculous, but I saw the movie Ratatouille when it came out. And it was not long before it was time for me to start applying to colleges. And I was like, oh my God, that is what I want to do. Like, I want to cook. I don't know, just something about that movie was so inspirational.
Oh my God. You know, that's so funny. I've heard other kids even just say that's like a movie that wants to get them in the kitchen.
Yes. I don't know. So sometimes I just can't explain it. It just felt right at the time, I suppose.
So did you have dietetics on your radar, or was it just mostly just cooking? Like I want to be a chef, or I want to just cook in the kitchen, or? It
was mostly just I wanted to cook, and I feel like I had a faint idea of okay, maybe I'll open a restaurant or something. But there was definitely the nutrition thing in my head. So I was looking at schools, and I'm from New Jersey. So I was looking at schools kind of mostly in that Northeast area, and Johnson & Wales University in Providence, Rhode Island. They have a couple of different locations across the country, but I was looking at that school and they had a culinary nutrition program, which to my knowledge is one of the only, if not the only ones in the country, which I think is so crazy because it seems like such a natural pairing. So I actually only applied to that one school.
Wow.
Because
that's brave.
Yeah. I just knew that that's where I wanted to go. And, I wanted to cook, and I just loved food and kind of the health and fuel aspect of it. So I went there, and then I played on the soccer team there for 2 years, actually.
Oh, wow.
Which was a great experience. But after 2 years, I decided okay, I'm probably not going to be professional or anything for sure. And I also started working in a restaurant in the city there, focusing on kind of high-end local food. And I just wanted to kind of hone that craft some more. So I shifted my focus more towards the cooking aspect for sure from soccer and playing sports as I did when I grew up. And I learned so much at that little restaurant. It's called Local 121. I don't think it's open anymore, but it was such an amazing place. And working with the farmers and just seeing the passion of my chef and my coworkers was amazing and really taught me a lot. And I pull on those skills almost every day in what I do, which is pretty crazy. I never thought that would happen, but it's pretty cool. And then, you do a culinary program for 2 years. You get your associates in culinary arts there. And then you can kind of decide where you want to go from there. I applied for the culinary nutrition program, which is another 2 years to get your bachelor's degree. That was definitely pretty challenging, but great opportunity, great experience. And then from there, I really knew that I wanted to do sports nutrition. But there's not a lot of programs in the country that do sports nutrition for a dietetic internship. But I applied to several for that. Oh, actually, before this, for my one of my internships at Johnson & Wales, I went to Athletes Performance, or Exos, now it's called, in Phoenix, and I was there for 3 months during the winter time, when they had a lot of the college football combine athletes come to train. And I was an intern in the kitchen there, and that was just really cool exposure to like a whole nother side of things in terms of fueling athletes and giving them what they need to succeed. So that was pretty influential as well. And Phoenix was awesome.
Oh, sure. Is that the only location of this Exos? Because I've seen other advertisements for jobs. So are they in other states or just in Phoenix?
They are. Yeah. They have a couple different locations as far as I know. There's a dietitian on Instagram who I really like. I think her name's Danny. She's in North Dakota at one of their Exos, I think. But yeah, the main one, and I believe the headquarters, is in Phoenix.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's a fun part of your internship.
Yes. Oh my goodness. And I just love the desert. I don't know why. I think it's because it's like totally different from New Jersey.
It's very different from New Jersey.
Yeah. I really like doing like different things, like totally new experiences. So that was a really great one.
It sounds like you're not scared to go anywhere to get an experience.
No, I am not. And I will come to that in just a moment.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So while I was in Phoenix, actually, that's when I was applying to dietetic internships. And I remember specifically the Ohio State one. It was new that year. It was a combined master's dietetic internship, which was exactly what I wanted. And that one only had 2 spots though.
2
spots. Yeah. And
that's so small.
Yeah, it was a joke. But I applied and I actually got into it.
Oh my goodness. Wow. That's awesome.
Right? I was like, are you sure you want me?
And one of the 2?
Yeah, that was crazy. So, I started that the following, or I guess the coming fall after that. Yes. Yep. So I graduated from Johnson & Wales, got ready, and then went to Ohio. And I think the biggest thing that got me there was my food service experience. And I was honestly kind of worried about that because I didn't have I have to take certain classes and have a certain curriculum to even be able to do a dietetic internship, of course, but it wasn't the traditional route. And I felt like that wouldn't be as valued to a lot of dietitians out there. So I was kind of nervous about that. But I guess in this case, and I've noticed from several cases on, having that culinary background and, understanding food and food service and how to really make food taste good, but also be good for you, was highly valued by some of those awesome dietitians at Ohio State that had me come work with them and shadow them. So that was really cool and really surprising.
Talk to me maybe about, you mentioned about your experience working in a restaurant. And I think maybe you can speak to this, because I think a lot of dietitians might think, hey, I'm going to be a dietitian. I don't need to go work in a restaurant. I don't really want to go into that culinary experience, or I don't want to go into that aspect. Why do you think a dietitian should maybe consider working in a restaurant setting for a while? Yes.
So I totally understand where those people are coming from, because part of me feels like that as well. But it is so important for several reasons. Reason number one, if you've never worked in customer service or specifically in a restaurant, you will never understand what it is to go to a restaurant and then really appreciate what those people are doing.
That's kind of true.
Make the magic happen. you absolutely, of course, learn the food service side of things. And even if it's not like a health restaurant or whatever, like you gain some understanding, of course, to like what it takes to make food and order food and make sure food is being properly stored and all of the temperature taking, all these things you don't really think of when we're just telling people to eat or any of that, because I feel like in traditional like dietetics or just like how people come up as students in dietetics, you don't get a ton of that, at least until your internship, where you get maybe a little bit of that. But gaining an understanding of what it takes to feed people and run an operation, and that's like really like how you're practically applying nutrition in many different aspects, depending on your job, is so valuable. If you're cooking in a restaurant, it gives you skills to learn how to cook, how to make food taste good, how to work on your timing and your knife skills and techniques and so many things, where that's just like the missing piece that I've seen for some dietitians sometimes. Because you can talk about food all day, but if you don't know how to make it taste good, then you should probably learn how to make it taste good.
That is I agree with you, because you're right. We can take pretty pictures and we can do things, but if it doesn't taste good, it's not food, really. Exactly.
And it just like, it's nobody's fault that like they weren't taught that, but you just have to go out and seek that knowledge, because if you don't have that as a dietitian, it will make you a better one. Absolutely.
And it sounds like that's what you did. Like you made it a point you wanted the culinary experience, but you also knew that it was important to your education.
Yeah. Like I knew I wanted to, so I started in restaurants, kind of wanting to open my own. That was kind of the idea. Or actually it's funny because at the restaurant in Rhode Island I worked at for, I think it was like 3 years or so, a little over 3 years throughout my undergrad experience, which is also something I highly recommend to any undergrads out there. Work during college if you can. I probably learned more working at the restaurant than I did paying for school.
Real life experiences are always more beneficial.
Absolutely. I forget where I was going.
You were talking more about just the experience of you worked at the restaurant for 3 years, and then, you wanted that experience during school, but you kind of made it a point to have it be part of your education.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Yes. Well,
I remember. Okay. So it was funny. I turned into like the ice cream girl there. Like I was in charge of making the ice cream from scratch. And I would follow the recipe. I memorized the recipe from Jenny's, who's based out of Columbus, Ohio. And that was awesome. That was so fun making ice cream. And I was like, I'm going to open a like ice cream shop. It's going to be great. And I was like, but wait, I love nutrition.
You're torn. You're pulled.
Yes. So eventually I realized that like nutrition really is where I wanted to go. So I left the restaurant world, but do
you still have a dream of owning your own restaurant in some way or capacity in the future?
I am not sure. And like this might be like a little bit offensive. I don't mean to be offensive to anybody, but I feel like in my experience working in several restaurants, either like if you own the restaurant, like you're crazy, because either like you had to be crazy to do that in the first place, or owning the restaurant made you crazy, or both.
I would agree with you, because I have a friend, her husband owns and runs a restaurant, and he's never home. Yeah. He's always going crazy. He's always trying to put out fires. It's a lot. It's a huge undertaking.
Yeah. And like, it's amazing, but it also kind of turns into your life.
Mm-hmm.
So I would love to have many friends who own restaurants. That's my new goal.
And then you can just visit them and leave and not stress out about it when you go home. So you did your internship at Ohio State. How long is the internship there?
It was a 2-year program. So
okay.
Yeah.
And your master's.
Yes. And the master's degree thing. And because we were sports nutrition interns, I had a ton of experience, mainly with the football team there, which was great and a whole different world. And And another really influential experience that I feel like I pull on frequently, and what I do.
I don't see how you couldn't, because that's a huge football program. So is there dietitians that actually just work with the football team there, or was it just kind of a free for all, like anybody was working with the team?
Yeah, so there's a team of 3 dietitians, Sarah Wick, Nicole Jontoni, and Sean McNichol. And Sean he still is the football dietitian for just the football team. And he was kind of new. Him and Nicole were kind of new when I started there as an intern. But Sarah Wick has been there for like very long time, like many years. So they knew what they were doing, but it was also like a learning experience for them too. Anyway, Sean was just dedicated to football, and a lot of it comes down to food service and just getting them fed. Like, they need so many calories, like you just got to feed them. And it was all pretty much kind of catered stuff. So seeing the food service kind of side of that and using some of my past knowledge there, and just like kind of understanding it for what it was in a way, I felt like was pretty cool having that food service experience right before that.
Because I think you made a good point. Like, I think a lot of dietitians might think, oh, I'm going to be a sports dietitian and it's going to be great. I'm going to counsel, the football players. But you're right. I think, what do you think? Like 80% is food service, like getting them fed and feeding them?
Yeah. I mean, probably.
Yeah. No, I would think so, because if you can't counsel them if you're not giving them food. So you have to do that first, and then you can maybe work with the individuals if needed. Yes,
exactly. Yeah. Like, food has to come first. So yeah, it's pretty incredible from what I have seen, like in sports dietetics, how much time is just devoted to getting the food on the table, literally.
And so as a dietitian intern and as a dietitian at a college, were you part of like the choosing the types of foods to give them the nutrition, like here's a 4,000 calorie meal, or here's like snacks for you? How does that work in a college setting?
Well, for this setting, at least, it was, we did end up, the other intern and I, we did end up like writing some of the menus as we started to understand what they needed, what the dietitian was looking for, what they liked. So that was, part of it for sure. They always had lots of different snacks available to them, from like nuts and peanut butter and bread and gummies and bars, all that kind of stuff. So stocking items is a huge part of sports dietetics that I feel like you would never think about, but I've seen that time and time again. Just literally restocking is such a big thing.
Huh. See, no one would ever dream that was part of their role.
No. And like, it's obviously not the most glamorous thing, but like, that's what gets the job done, and it's necessary and it's fine, and they're appreciative. So
is it intimidating working with college athletes, especially like big husky football players that, are 10 feet taller than you? And
yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, it absolutely can be, but then you just get used to it.
Sure.
And
they get used to you, I'm sure. They're like, oh, it's a dietitian and she's getting me some food.
Yeah, exactly. You just have to make friends with food always.
Did you have to go to a sporting event like the games, and did you have to be there for practices? How does that work as an intern?
So it was when I was there, it was the first year of the program. So it was kind of in its infancy in terms of like having everything laid out, like exactly, how it should be, what is like optimal in terms of like experiences and everything. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure how they're doing it now, but at least when I was there, the other intern and I each took a turn doing like 1 or 2 games. So we went to the game at the football stadium and we helped them set up the things in the locker room, and we were on the sideline kind of supporting them. But there wasn't a ton of stuff that we did at the practices. They had like tons of water, tons of Gatorade, all that kind of stuff. But I didn't do like a lot of like on the field support for them, really.
Gotcha.
Yeah. For other teams, like for wrestling, for example, we ended up doing smoothies after their practices a lot of times. And that was great. Wrestlers are an amazing group of athletes to work with because all athletes are hardworking, but wrestlers are seriously something else. And they were just super appreciative. It always feels good, of course.
Yeah. Tell me, are they just a different type of athlete? Like, just how are they more focused on nutrition? Well, obviously, if they're focused on weight.
Yes. Yeah. So that's a big thing. And I think it's just the culture of the sports. And it's funny as you start to work with different sports, like there's totally different food cultures that go along with them. In a kind of stereotypical way. Sometimes it's like, these athletes and what they eat without even knowing them at all. Yeah. So because it's a weight class sport, they're definitely aware. And like the higher up they get, the more elite they get, like the more aware and like the better understanding they have of themselves and their body and how they need to choose their nutrition carefully to make their weight and really, achieve their ideal body composition and everything. But yeah, they just go so hard in practice. Like they come out of the room and you're like, are you okay? Like, are you dying?
Because they've worked out so hard during that time.
Yes, they're some of the hardest working athletes I think I've encountered.
Did you have a favorite sport that you liked to work with? I mean, I know you mentioned just wrestling, but was there one that stuck out to you the most?
During my time at Ohio State?
Yeah.
I would say probably wrestling.
Wrestling. Yeah.
So I did a couple cooking classes for some of the teams while I was there. And the women's lacrosse team was super fun because I think we did like 2 different sessions with them. And they came back for another session because they wanted to do like a challenge kind of against each other. So they like dressed up and had these themes and they did it like chop style and they plated it and they were just really, really fun.
That sounds fun.
Yeah.
That sounds really fun.
Yeah. It was cool.
So, anything else about like your internship that really sticks out for maybe someone that's going, well, and like you said, it's sports nutrition. There isn't a lot of opportunity that way in internships, but anything that you want to share for individuals that are seeking that out?
For sports nutrition in particular?
Yeah. Yes.
So I feel like it's a relatively small area in dietetics. So there's not a lot of positions, but it's seriously growing as more and more people understand the importance of nutrition and fueling your body correctly. So I think, and especially as dietitians, we're like, a lot of people are like type A, like you have to like do the best and get it done. And then when you go to like sports nutrition, it's like a whole nother level of competitiveness. And you have a good amount of people vying for only a couple of spots. So it can be kind of frustrating when you're trying to make it into the field because it doesn't feel like there's a lot of positions or you spend a lot of time being an intern or, doing things that you didn't think you would be doing just to get to where you're going. But it's totally worth it. And you have to put in the work and it may seem silly or tedious or whatever, but it's a great learning experience and keep going because those are skills that you don't even realize you're gaining and you will use in the future.
And when you talk about the Exos experience, I know that you said that was a really great component to internship and do some work. What kind of athletes did you work with at that facility? I'm guessing more like focused, trained, like athletes that are really hardcore about their sport.
Yeah. So I was there doing it was a 3-month winter internship and we had a bunch of combine athletes come. So the combine, for anybody who doesn't know, is when college football players go to this like big tryout essentially, and they have to show all these different skills like running and weightlifting. And then those skills are judged by the NFL teams who use that. And then obviously their past playing experience to decide who they want to draft. So I guess every year or however many years has been happening, I don't know, but a bunch of combine athletes will go, or these football athletes who want to be in the combine. They'll go and train there at Exos, and they have like a full, highly skilled team working with them to get them to their optimal kind of position. So when I was there, that was definitely like probably the biggest group that we worked with. There was other like baseball players and some international people and some tactical athletes, and also some local people who wanted to pay for those services who were there. But definitely the young kind of football people were the
main ones.
Yeah.
And do they have full-time dietitians on staff, I'm assuming?
Yeah. So it was pretty cool. They had a dietitian, and the dietitian would make kind of like a what is that called? What is that called? Oh my God. Like a meal plan with different, oh my God, I'm totally blanking. Exchanges. Okay. Sorry.
That's okay. It's been a while. It's okay. You're pulling back through all those cobwebs of things that happened like a long time ago.
Yeah. So the dietitian would make these kind of like skeleton meal plans with exchanges for certain food groups for certain meals. And in the kitchen, we would make a menu of like a handful of items each day. And the athletes would come in the morning. We would make them breakfast. And then they could look at the menu, decide what they wanted for lunch, tell us about what time they would be coming. And then we would kind of like divide up who was making which dish that day. And then we would have our tickets ready of which athletes wanted which items. And we would look at their meal plan and say, okay, you have 2 starch exchanges. I'm going to adjust the pasta in this dish that you want by this much.
Oh, wow. That's pretty specific.
It was really, really cool. I mean, it's hard to do on other scales. It's definitely doable, but that type of model I thought was a great idea.
That's really interesting. That's a great experience that you had that. I had no idea that even existed.
Yeah.
And then like you said, you got to do your culinary, you got to, do some cooking, and you got to be in the kitchen, and that's kind of exciting.
Yeah, it was cool. I'm like, it's just like, I love challenges, and I love doing new things. And I always want to like challenge myself the most that I can. So I feel like working in the kind of like elite high level of athletics is just exciting. So that was so cool to kind of be able to be there and support them in a small way, giving them some food to help them train for the draft.
Yeah, and to see probably the results of your efforts too, because you could probably see performance wise, or at least their coaches and maybe the dietitian could see that they were improving based on their nutrition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
So what happened after you graduated? You got your master's, you became a dietitian. What was the next step for you?
Yeah, so I worked at a restaurant as a server right after I graduated, and that helped me save some money. But then at the end of that summer, I was diagnosed with skin cancer. And that really sucked, obviously.
Oh my gosh. But did you have melanoma?
Yeah, it was stage 3 melanoma.
Oh my gosh, Stephanie.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy.
Scary. Where was it?
It was on my lower back, and it kind of it just looked like a mole. And because it was on my lower back, like it wasn't something that I was seeing all the time. Mm-hmm. And I'd had it for probably over a year. And then I was like, I don't know about this. And I had never been to a dermatologist. So I was like, okay, I should really go. And I did. And this melanoma. And I ended up having 2 surgeries to remove it all. And in that time, I really couldn't do anything. And I just wanted to get out and travel and just do something. Because I had just graduated and I had just worked, in school my whole life and studying. And I was like, I need to go just enjoy.
Absolutely.
Right. So while I was recovering, it was a couple months recovery, but while I was recovering, I found this program called GeoVisions where you can travel and kind of choose an internship type of thing. So I thought that'd be a cool way to travel because I didn't get to study abroad when I was in school. So I wanted to travel and then do something with my degree, with my knowledge that I had gained. So I found this program and I told them I was interested in sports nutrition, and they were able to set me up as a dietitian in this little gym in Malta. Do you know what that is?
Oh my gosh. Are you serious? Yeah.
Yeah. So for anyone who doesn't know, it's this tiny island nation south of Sicily between Italy and Africa. And just an incredible cultural space. It's pretty heavily influenced by Italian culture, but their language is Maltese and the base of that is Arabic. And it's so crazy. So I went there in November. I think it was the end of November of that year. And I was there until the end of February. And I was able to counsel some athletes in that gym and give some education. And it was just a really cool mix of kind of practicing what I had learned on a little more of a chill setting. Yeah. Or anything. And then also being able to just experience Malta and travel a little bit in that area. So that's
really interesting. So it's called GeoVisions?
Yeah, GeoVisions. So I was like, I'm going to travel regardless. I can either pay my way, pay for my, accommodations, figure it out on my own, or I could pay the same amount to this company who's going to find me a really cool experience. So that's what I did.
I think that now that's something I never, did you just Google it and find it on your own, or how did you hear about that program?
Yeah, I just started Googling things.
You're travel experiences.
Yeah, travel internship or travel abroad or experiences. Yeah, I looked at so many programs. And that was kind of the only one that I could find that gave me, because they only had this type of internship program in a couple countries around the world. And I knew I wanted to go to either South America or the Mediterranean. And then, it was anything I wanted it to be. So it worked out.
So what kind of athletes were there in Malta?
So the gym I was in was a super small family run business. It was, for the most part, every day it was just the owner and myself. The only other employee was his son.
Really?
Which is super Maltese. It's weird if you have, I feel it's weird if you have employees.
Really?
It's just so old world in a way. It's unbelievable. But anyway, so kind of the most noteworthy athletes I would say that I worked with there was a group of soccer players from South America, who were playing on some Maltese professional teams there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which you have a soccer connection. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah, exactly. And I can speak Spanish. At that time I was okay. Now I'm a lot better. But I love practicing. So it was really cool to practice with them too.
I bet. So did you learn the native language then as well, besides Spanish?
Oh, no.
No. I was that sounds like a big undertaking.
No, Maltese is insane. So just for an example, one of the few things I remember, to say please in Maltese, it's yek yojbok.
Oh my gosh.
And if that's how you say please, I think you can imagine what the rest of it's like.
So you didn't have to really know Maltese to be able to intern or do the experience.
Correct. So Maltese and English are the two official languages there.
Okay.
And I would say most Maltese people spoke at least a little bit of English. Many of them were fluent. But I did find some that didn't speak any, which was weird.
Oh my God. This just proves that you are a very adventurous spirit, because that's a huge move to do for a while.
Yeah. And it was also really cool because I was in this apartment and I had two roommates who were engineer interns from Bulgaria, and another roommate who was a student, and she was from the Netherlands. And then I had another roommate who came midway through, and it's so crazy because she was from New Jersey, like me.
Really? There you go. You had to travel the world to meet her.
Yeah. Well, learning their cultures was great. I love learning about other people's cultures and where they come from. I think there's just so much to gain there. So that was so cool.
Absolutely. I might have to do this. I regret never studying abroad during college. That's one of my biggest regrets. So I could see why you would want to go do that.
Yeah. I felt like I needed to, especially after being in school my whole life. It just felt like I needed to get out and just do something totally different.
And that's a life experience that you'll never get anywhere else. So I think that's another great attribute to you and your profession too, because it just sets you apart than maybe someone else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
And are you all healed up from your skin cancer?
Yeah. So I have to get a couple scans a couple times a year. But so far so good. I've had like a couple like iffy spots removed, but otherwise it's been fine, which is amazing. And I'm so grateful. And also like that whole experience, I think like before that happened, like I was definitely kind of person who was like, okay, I need to get this done. Like I don't have time to lose, but now I'm totally that person. Like it's just crazy. It's kind of sad that it takes an experience like that sometimes for us to learn, like you just have to go for it. And you never know when you're not going to have time to, or when, something happens and you can't even walk. Like you just have to go for it because you'll regret it if you don't. And like, I mean, I don't know, like what else are you gonna do with your time? Like work for what you want.
That's so true. And that's such a good message because do you feel like a lot of people settle for jobs and just life sometimes when it comes to maybe dietetics or any profession that you've kind of been around?
Yeah, I think so. It's kind of sad. Like it's hard for me to relate to that, quite honestly.
Because you go find it. You're like, if I can't find it here, I feel like you go and find those experiences.
Yeah. And I think it's out there for anybody. Like if you want something and you're not working for it, what is stopping you from working for it? It just like I just feel like that's the most useful way to spend your life, chasing your passion and trying to make the world better and learn and do stuff. And speaking of that, I recently listened to this audiobook it's a book. It's called Mindset. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I haven't.
It's by Carol Dweck, and it's fabulous for anybody who might not understand like why they're maybe not getting anywhere or what's stopping them or what's in their way. And kind of just talking about like what I was now, like you just have to go for it. And it's really all about learning. I think sometimes we get stuck and we're like, okay, I'm good at this. Like I need to be perfect at this or whatever, but that's not going to get you where you want to be because you need to work hard. You need to understand you're always going to be learning. So once we can really appreciate that, like you'll go so much farther and like enjoy it more too.
Because you're right. You never know, like tomorrow could be gone. So there's no time like the present. And I feel like as dietitians that we do get comfy and we feel like we have to take a job because it's just safe or, we just get so, I don't know, like I feel like we get complacent with our profession sometimes. So I love your message of that.
Yeah. I think there's always something more to work for, and what better way to spend your time, trying to be better.
Absolutely. Oh, that makes me happy. I love hearing stuff like that. So after your Malta experience, where did you head off to next?
So I actually tried to stay there.
Did you?
I did. I found this kind of crummy type job. But I just really wanted to stay because I didn't have any jobs or anything in America. And I loved Europe, and it was 3 months is not enough time, obviously. So I tried to stay, but the paperwork didn't work out.
Oh, darn.
So, okay, yeah. So when I was in undergrad, my parents moved to North Carolina from New Jersey. So after I came back to the States, I was with them for a couple of months. And that's when I started looking for positions. And actually, when I was in Malta, kind of near the end, I applied to the SNP program, which is run through Gatorade, and it's an internship program for sports nutrition. and it's at a couple different locations, like professional teams and universities throughout the country. So I applied to that, and a couple of weeks after I got back to the States, they were doing interviews for it, and I had several interviews lined up. And in a big learning experience, at the time, I was actually still waiting back to hear about paperwork for Malta, because there was still a chance that I would be able to go back, even though like I didn't get the paperwork done when I was there. Still a chance I'd be able to go back. So I was like really hanging on to that. And I was doing these interviews, and part of me just also didn't want to be an intern anymore.
Yes, absolutely.
And like my heart just wasn't in it. And I think that the people who were interviewing me could really see that. I mean, I applied for the program because I like didn't know what else to do at that time. I was like, I'll apply. I don't know. But I ended up getting way more things or way more interviews than I thought I was going to. I was like, ooh. So I ended up not matching to any of them, which was like pretty disappointing in a way, but also kind of like a good wake up call in a way too. Like, I don't know. So I was looking for jobs and applying to a bunch of college sport nutrition positions, when I saw one for the Olympic Committee as a dietitian working kind of like in the food service area there. And I didn't even think, honestly, to apply, because I didn't think I would get it, because I'm like, the Olympics, like, oh no, like, how am I qualified for that? But the dietitian, I actually interviewed with the dietitian for that SNP internship program. Her name is Jen Gibson, and she was awesome, like so cool. And it's funny because the intern who got that was one of it was like the next rounds of interns at Ohio State. Like this guy, he got that position, which was so cool. I was so happy for him. But she used to work at the USOC, the Olympic Committee, as a dietitian, and she like texted me like, hey, I saw this position came up and I feel like you'd be a really good fit. If you're interested, I can put in a good word for you. And I was like, oh my God, okay. That's amazing. Sure. So she did, and I applied, and it's funny because like I didn't hear back from them for weeks, and I had this trip planned to Cuba with my boyfriend at the time. And in the car on the way to the airport, I get like this email from someone at the USOC, and they're like, hey, we're interested, like just wondering if we could set up a interview with you, like a phone interview. And I was like, oh my God.
You're like, yay.
No way. Like I thought it was totally gone because it had been weeks. I was like, sure, absolutely. But like, I'm leaving for Cuba tomorrow. I'll be gone for 2 weeks. So I ended up I was like in the mall that night with my sister. I had this phone interview with my future boss in the mall. And I was like, so embarrassed.
Did you tell him that you're in the mall?
Yes. Yeah. Like, I mean, we had the interview because it was the only time, because she knew I was going to Cuba and I'd be like totally off the grid for 2 weeks. So yeah.
Well, it worked out.
Yeah. So then when I came back from Cuba, they had another phone conversation or another like video call with me, and they wanted to fly me out to meet me in person. So that was super cool. On my first time being in Colorado, and also I think being from New Jersey, and then seeing the mountains, it's like, what? This is incredible. Mm-hmm. So yeah. And then they offered me the job, and then I moved out a couple of weeks later.
So how long have you been working there?
I have been here for a little bit over a year. I started at the end of July in 2017. So a little bit over a year.
And you said your main responsibilities are more of the food service aspect again?
Yes. So I am the dietitian in the dining facility at the Olympic Training Center here in Colorado Springs. And I'm the only dietitian that's like hired by the USOC that doesn't necessarily work like individually with teams and athletes and travel with them and like do other nutrition plans and pack up their snacks and all that kind of stuff. From what I do usually is stuff like menu writing, recipe writing, working with our chefs on a bajillion things to always make sure we're on track and making things better. I'll do recipe testing sessions and cooking classes for the staff or helping other dietitians put them on. I got to go to Korea for the Olympics, which was super cool. And over there, I was managing one of our food service operations for the athletes in the mountains. This was kind of like a safe haven, safe food, familiar food, little America type thing for them.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was so cold.
So cold. Was it so cold?
I've never been colder in my life.
Did you have appropriate stuff to wear when you were over there?
Yes, thankfully they provided us with jackets as part of our package to go there.
Oh, good.
And I think I only took that jacket off when I was going to bed. Like,
you're like, I'm so cold, I might even leave it on.
Yes.
That's quite the experience for your first year of employment.
Yes, I agree. I had just started and my manager was talking about like Korea and whatever, because they had been planning, setting up these operations and everything for like a year or two beforehand. And she's talking about it all the time. And I'm like, so should I be planning to go there? And she's like, oh yeah, for sure. And I'm like, oh, okay. All right.
Well, that's like right up your alley with new experiences and traveling and being part of a different culture. And
exactly. Yeah. So that's why I like working. That's like one of the really cool things about working for the USSC. Like it's the United States Olympic Committee, but by nature, it's just so international. And I would really love to travel more with them and help our athletes and everything.
I hope I think you're in the right place because there's probably lots of potential with that. And I think it's really interesting how your culinary experience just kind of keeps coming back as a main theme for a lot of your jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of funny because in like one regard, I'm like, it's kind of annoying because when you go to, first of all, like, as I said, there's not that many schools and or students, people that come out of culinary nutrition programs or have that like dual background. So when you do have it, people jump on it because that's in pretty high demand, like chef RDs. That's that's a pretty cool double skill set to have. So it's a little bit hard to escape that if you're trying to escape it, because that's what people kind of see you doing. But it's such an incredible skill set to have, and you can be so versatile, like preparing the food and planning and doing all the kind of stuff that an athlete needs, like in all aspects of performance nutrition. But yeah, it does make perfect sense for this position where I am now, having that culinary background, and like there'd be no way that I could write all the recipes I write and work with the chefs like I do, because I understand where they're coming from and like I understand the food and the food service part. Yeah.
Well, and I think it's interesting because I probably, when I started kind of following you, I mean, your food that you do, you have such a realistic take on your own personal view on social media when you like show people how to cut, a vegetable, or just, I like your perspective of there's still even dietitians that need some of that basic information. And I love how you share that with the public and with other dietitians and probably with your your athletes and your coworkers even too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm glad that you find it useful.
I do.
Sometimes I'm like, is this like too remedial? But usually those things, like I'll do that either because it's what I have in my fridge, or because like I did a cooking class and somebody literally didn't know the difference between a zucchini and a cucumber. And I was like, okay, like a little tutorial might be helpful on this.
Mm-hmm. And I think if people have questions like that, or they don't know the difference, then if there's one person, there's like 50 other people that don't know either.
Exactly. And some of those things, it's like, because I've been doing it for a while, like I don't even think to explain that. But then those experiences, like, oh, wow, this is like useful information for people out there.
Absolutely. And for the people like me who do not cook very much, I always like to learn something new, whether it's cutting a vegetable in a different way or easier way, like all of that stuff I think is very useful.
Yeah. And I kind of like to come at it with the approach of like, I don't think there's any one way to make any one food. And, kind of understanding food in that way, like you can do whatever you want to it, and being in charge and having your like creativity going on, I think is super important and just like nourishing for you in the kitchen in a way.
Absolutely. Do you find that you get a lot of those freedoms to kind of create recipes based on guidelines and things like that you're doing at work? Or do you have to meet certain guidelines there and then you're more creative on the outside?
Yes, both.
Both. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I'm making recipes and writing menus for our dining facility, making sure it's performance focused is absolutely right up there, right next to it has to taste good. And then look good, of course. So I try to make it also pretty like simple and straightforward. It's hard though, because the athletes that we have come through there are like the whole range. Like we could have like 14-year-old swimming camp, or we could have like gold medal gymnasts or whatever the case is.
They're all different.
Yeah. And like the swimming kids will eat like 10 pounds of pasta and ice cream and that's it. And then some other athletes will like, just have a salad with the protein or whatever the case. So really have to create like a whole range of recipes that, meets a whole bunch of different dietary needs as well as dietary preferences and likes and dislikes. And if it's spicy or if it's foreign or whatever the case. But like, I'm really trying to expand their palates, literally, to help them learn that there's so many new flavors out there and, so much different stuff that you didn't think of, because for a lot of these athletes, like it will come to an end one day. Like your career is going to kind of end. So you have to be a real human that's going to make food for yourself. So I would love to expose them to all these different ways that you can make food. And, I didn't think about like, you could eat a carrot like this. So having them gain some little experience with that is pretty cool for a life skill.
That's a great thing. And you get that interaction with them when you're there. Yeah.
I spend probably too much time in my office writing recipes. But yeah, I definitely try to get out whenever I can. Just see how everything's going in the dining hall, make sure the food's looking good. I do educational things about once a month in the dining facility. So last month, what did I do? Oh, it was on antioxidants. So I had this little educational sheet on antioxidants and why they're important for performance and what they are. And then I made, of course, because what I've learned so far is that you need to have less words, more pictures, and something to taste test.
It sounds about perfect.
If you don't have those things, they're not coming over.
They're not going to come talk to you.
So I made this it's kind of like a yogurt dip with cocoa powder and almond butter. And then we had these really cool, they're called moondrop grapes. Do you know about them?
Yes, they're amazing.
Yeah. So it's funny because I actually had planned to use cherries, but I guess cherry season had ended like the day before, of course.
Oh, of course.
So there was only these moondrop grapes as like kind of the alternative. And I was like, I don't know. Okay, I'll go with this one. But it turned out to be like, of course, like the most interesting part of the entire presentation, because everyone was like, what is that?
Because they look so different.
Yes. So anyway, I try to get with the athletes doing that type of stuff, just educating them and having them try new things and seeing how nutrition can be interesting and fun and
that is fun. How many athletes do you kind of get in and out of your dining area in a day?
So it'll depend. We have, I think we have less than like 100 resident athletes, which are athletes that are sponsored by their national governing bodies of sport to stay on our campus and train and everything. So those guys can stay there for months to years. And then we have camps that come through to use the facilities. And in the summertime, it really spikes. So we could be serving like 500 people or so per meal.
Oh, wow. That's a lot.
Yeah. To times when we don't have a lot of camps, it's pretty much just like the resident athletes and then some staff that will eat there. So we do like maybe 200 people.
It's like a small little college campus dining facility.
Yes. Yeah, it really is. In different parts of what we do, we definitely like kind of look to what other colleges or college campuses are doing, because it's like that in a lot of ways.
And I think it's interesting how you get to kind of get a feel for what your residents are, what their needs are, and educate them about new things. I think that's such a great opportunity that you get to have those touch points with them.
Yeah. And it's fun. I like the challenge of trying to figure out how I can fit in the education with the fun, taste testing, learning something new about a different food thing. So.
And they probably loved you at the Olympics because you probably did have food that was familiar, and they were probably like, yes,
oh my goodness,
I know what that is.
Yeah. So in Korea, South Korea, I just say Korea, but South Korea. When you go and you get food, like you go order food somewhere, for the most part, it's going to be something like a giant bowl of noodles or rice with a little bit of protein and then maybe some like pickled vegetables. So it's like a ton of carbs and not a lot of fresh stuff, and not a lot of like plain lean protein, which many elite athletes, that's like a huge staple in their diet, like chicken breast. So in Korea, like I said, that's pretty hard to find what they're looking for, which is like a more well-rounded plate with like fresh vegetables and maybe some rice or pasta and some lean protein. So to be able to provide them with like the familiar American foods is awesome. But it's funny because they like were so excited. They would freak out when they would come in and we had Mexican on the menu that day.
Like tacos. Yes.
Literally. Oh my God. They were psyched. That was by far their favorite stuff.
Well, that's good to know that even athletes, Olympians like to eat tacos.
Yes. And I feel like tacos, they're such an American thing now. Like so many restaurants you go to, regardless of whatever type of restaurant it is, like you can find tacos of some sort on the menu.
You can. There's always a taco of some type. I swear, I totally am with you on that.
Yeah. Yes, I did. Yeah.
So just tell me a little bit too. I know that you're very busy, obviously, with your job, but I know you do your Instagram account on the side. You have a website. What is kind of that purpose for you, and why do you do that on top of all the other things that you're doing?
So I started that when it was kind of ridiculous time for me to start that, but I started that in kind of the final half of my second year of my dietetic internship master's program, when I was going to finish my thesis and graduate. And I was like, let me start a food blog.
Of course.
Right? It's just natural timing. So there's a couple of food blogs, namely like David Leibovitz and Smitten Kitchen and Molly A. Oh my God, Molly, do you know Molly A?
No.
Her website is My Name is Ye, YEH, and she has a new show on Food Network called Girl Meets Farm. I think she's from Chicago, but now she lives on like a sugar beet farm with her husband in North or South Dakota. Like it's some crazy story, but I just love her food photography and all of her stuff. And I actually met her in Korea. It was so
it
was so random. I was like all these famous athletes around, and I see Molly Ye, and I'm like, oh my God.
You seem to travel to other countries and meet people that you should be meeting in the United States.
Right? Seriously. Anyway, so I had been following all these blogs for years, and I was like, I can do this. So I did. And it kind of just started like as a creative outlet for myself. And I wanted it to be like performance food and cooking and information, because I haven't really seen a lot of websites out there doing that. And I feel like with my experience, like I was kind of a good person to maybe put one together. And I wasn't cooking in kitchens anymore, so I wasn't making food for people. And I kind of missed being able to share my ideas and my food with people. So it was just a really good outlet for that. And it's been hard to maintain at least the like recipe writing part recently, at least, because I bought a house out here and I've been doing some renovations, and Colorado is amazing, and I'm busy at work. And
yeah, you're wanting to live your life, so it's kind of hard to you're writing recipes at work. So coming home to write them is probably kind of daunting sometimes.
Exactly. So what I end up doing for what I'm putting on my website are things that like ideas that I think are still like performance nutrition kind of based, but maybe wouldn't work in our operation. Otherwise, all those other ideas are happening in the operation.
Oh, that's exciting. Because you have some very creative recipes.
Yeah, I like to be creative. And like I said before, like, I don't think there's any one way to eat any one food. I love understanding food more from like breaking the food down to what does it provide? Like a tomato, for example. So like people are like, oh, tomatoes are in salads and tomato sauce. Well, tomatoes are also like sweet and acidic, and they have this certain texture that enhances these different items and dishes. And like, what food could use some acidity and some sweetness? Like maybe use a tomato there. So I try to like create recipes and build things around those type of ideas.
I need to follow you around in the kitchen so you could do some things, because I would never think of that. That's the aspect that I think is so cool about culinary and nutrition, is like you get food so much better than just a dietitian who hasn't gone through that experience.
Yeah. And it's just experience too. Like, yeah, it's just getting yourself in there. And like, I mean, the work can be kind of overwhelming or daunting if you're looking at it like the hard labor in a kitchen. But, I mean, that hard work gets you pretty far.
So do you kind of see yourself settling? I mean, it sounds like you got a house in Colorado, so you're like happy where you're at. Do you kind of see anything changing in your future? Are you just going to kind of keep growing and working with the Olympic Committee and making amazing food?
Yeah. So currently, I mean, I've only been in my job for a little over a year, and this is actually the first time they've really had like an employed dietitian doing this. So I think I love the position, but I think there's also some room for it to grow. And I am happy to grow with it and encourage it to grow, and just make our operation better. And working for Team USA is so cool. Like,
I bet it is.
Before I did that, I used to think like, oh my God, like Team USA. I just thought it was the coolest thing. I love teamwork and being part of the team growing up playing team sports. And just representing your country, being able to, do it on that level is the coolest thing to inspire a nation. So to be part of the team behind the team, is so cool. And there's a ton of different opportunities and positions like all around sport and different, sports like USA cycling, all those USA type of, they're called NGBs, national governing bodies. So I don't know where I'll go. Currently I love Colorado. It is so amazing and beautiful. And I like what I'm doing. And yeah, my current life is to kind of grow within where I am right now.
So remind me what your official title is. Are you the head of dining services? Is that kind of your title? I
am not. My title is literally registered dietitian.
Oh, well, that's perfect. Because then you can go anywhere with that then. That's amazing.
Right. Yeah. It's registered dietitian, food and nutrition services.
Perfect. That is perfect. Because that just means you can go to Korea, you can go to South Korea, you can go anywhere you want. And I agree with you. Colorado Springs is probably like one of my favorite cities in the United States. I love that city. So yeah, I can understand why you don't want to leave.
Yes. It's so close to so many different mountains, and you can also go south and be in the desert in a couple hours. And yeah, it's just, and especially the springs, because we're right near Pikes Peak. It's just gorgeous.
It is gorgeous. I totally agree with you. Well, and I think it's just so exciting that you have kind of gotten to this position, and you have such a great background that has gotten you there. And I think that just is a testament to just your adventurous spirit and how you just say yes. And I think that's so important.
Yes. And I would highly encourage other people to do that too. You just got to go for it. Like, it's scary, but if you don't, like, you're just never going to get to where you're want to go.
I'm gonna check out that book that you mentioned too, the mindset, for sure.
Yeah,
because I think it is a lot. Like it's good you might have to change your mindset a little bit to get where you want to be.
Yes. And especially for, I think, a lot of dietitians, just how we naturally are.
Yes.
it can be really useful, and maybe not like a super awesome wake-up call, but a worth it wake-up call for some people.
Well, and thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing your story so far. I know there's a lot of awesomeness ahead for you. So I appreciate you sharing all those experiences.
Of course. Yeah. I hope everyone isn't sick of my voice. But,
No. And of course, I always end my podcast with my fun questions for you, since everyone says these are the hardest. I don't believe it, but maybe they are. Will you share with me some of your favorite foods or a favorite food of yours?
Oh, this is, people ask me this, and I'm like, I don't know. I think it totally depends on like who is making it, where you're getting it, but even just like a really delicious local ripe mango is amazing. Like, I was in Australia, and it just doesn't make sense how delicious the mangoes are here.
Compared to what you get in the grocery store in the United States, right?
Yes, it's just not the same unless it's like the Alfonso mangoes.
Oh, I haven't had those. Are those really good?
Oh, they're fabulous. You should probably get them in your store.
Okay.
So they're like little yellow, and they have like a super creamy texture. They're also called atulfo or champagne mangoes.
Okay.
They're so good.
Gotcha. Those are good. I have had the champagne ones.
Okay.
I didn't know they're also Alfonso. Good to know, though.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Do you have a favorite beverage?
Coffee, espresso, iced espresso, half and half.
So yes, you do have a favorite beverage.
Oh my God, I run on coffee.
Do you have an espresso machine at your house?
Yes, I do.
I figured you were one of those that have those.
Oh, it's fabulous. I would highly recommend it to anybody who loves espresso. You will save so much money from going to the coffee store.
It's so true. My cousin has one, and every time I go out there, I'm like, I just want an espresso. Can you just make me an espresso? And she's like, of course. Yes. I feel like I'm in a very nice coffee shop in like Paris or something.
Yes, it's great. Yeah, I can't do the drip coffee after espresso.
I bet. Oh yeah, it's so different. So different. Mm-hmm. Do you have a favorite color, or what's a color that you enjoy?
Probably turquoise, mostly because it reminds me of the ocean in New Jersey. I grew up by the ocean a lot. So probably turquoise.
Well, you're in a good city for turquoise.
Yeah.
It's everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a favorite scent or a smell? Besides coffee, besides espresso.
I love lavender. I really love lavender. And then also like the smell of the forest in the summertime.
I know what you're saying there. I can smell it. Yeah.
It depends on the forest. And down here, it's a little like deserty, but like the dirt and like the hot plants, that sounds gross, but like, I don't know, it just smells like outdoor warm adventures, and it's awesome.
Do you go hiking and stuff a lot?
Yes. I went on like an overnight tubing trip this weekend, and then I did a little hike afterwards. And yes, I try to spend all of my time outside that I'm not inside, which is also makes it hard to work on my website, especially in the summertime, because all I want to do is
sure. Yeah, I don't blame you. And you have a dog, so I'm sure your dog wants to get outside too. So
yeah, I get home and she knows. She's like, "Where are we going?"
We're going on. Let's go. Yeah. It's outside time. And what brings you joy, Stephanie?
Life in general, honestly. I think you can find joy and choose to find joy in whatever you want, and you can find it anywhere. But I will say, especially dogs.
Dogs bring you a lot of joy, huh?
Dogs are, they are love and happiness.
They are, just all the time. They never get sad or blue. They're always full of.
They're such a furry inspiration. I love them.
Well, thank you so much. And again, I hope my listeners go follow Stephanie. Your handle on Instagram and your website is cookeatcompete.com is your website. So make sure I just saw a beautiful burrata and pepper recipe on there that I'm going to make. So yes, that looks amazing. So thank you so much for your time this evening. And I will be stalking you some more on Instagram.
Of course, I'm more than happy to kind of share these things, and I hope help some people out there.
Thank you. I absolutely love Stephanie's adventurous spirit and how she has created her own experiences, leading her to a job that she loves. She exemplifies exactly what we all should be doing when we think about our career and what we want to do and how do we go after it. There's no time like the present. Her website and Instagram accounts are one of the loveliest I have ever seen, so I do hope you follow along and get some inspiration from her culinary expertise. My website, AnnElizabethRD.com, is where you can read the latest post in my Nutrition Nauseous blog that houses all the stories of my inspirational hell yeah happenings and adventures, food I'm noshing on, the music inspiring my life, and maybe a really delicious real deal recipe that I'm probably burning up in my kitchen. And at the end, I want to share with you all the things I'm loving right now. You can find all my previous podcasts, show notes, and links to things we talked about during all my conversations with these inspiring humans. And if you're into reading, you can also purchase my book from the website. Let's connect on social media, where you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest at AnnElizabethRD. Remember to be great always, find the joy in each day, and to start a conversation that truly matters.